Chancellor, it is my honor to present to you Nancy Neamtan, Strategic Advisor and former President and Executive Director of the Chantier de l'économie sociale in Quebec. We are indebted to Nancy Neamtan for her tireless and passionate commitment to economic democracy, equity, and social justice in communities across Quebec, throughout Canada, and internationally. This began more than 40 years ago. Following her graduation from McGill University, Nancy worked as a community organizer in the Sud-Ouest of Montreal, where she challenged expert opinion and predictions by stemming the tide of economic decline in the neighborhood with an innovative, citizen-driven economic revitalization strategy. This new model became the template for community economic development initiatives created in the mid-1980s in Montreal and later in other regions of Quebec and across Canada. Nancy Neamtan's courage and conviction to work outside the box, to break down barriers between citizens' movements, business, labor, and government knows no bounds. It is no wonder that in 1996, the Premier of Quebec, Lucien Bouchard, invited her to lead a task force on the social economy, the Chantier de l'économie sociale, one of 4 task forces created by the Premier in the 1996 Summit on the Economic and Social Future of Quebec. Under Nancy Neamtan's leadership, the Chantier became an independent, nonprofit organization in 1999 that she has directed until just a few months ago. The place of the social economy in the social, economic, and institutional landscape in Quebec is a great tribute to Nancy Neamtan's leadership, her fighting spirit, her integrity, and her firm belief in the collective intelligence and capacity of men and women to design sustainable and democratic economic development strategies. Her many achievements in the social economy and in community initiatives include the development of financial tools and solidarity finance institutions and research partnerships with universities across the country. She continues to inspire a new generation of young people mobilized to build a better world. Today's recognition that collaboration is necessary to address the deep economic, social, and environmental crises and meet the challenges of our times represents a decisive historical moment for the social economy. Its contributions to societal well-being in Quebec and internationally well exceed its quantifiable, measurable achievements. Nancy Neamtan has received numerous awards in recognition of her extraordinary contributions to Quebec society. Recently, she was made an officer of the Order of Quebec. What began as a neighborhood revitalization project in the southwest of Montreal has led to the creation of a vast and diverse network in the social economy in Quebec and to the development of an international community of practice. Nancy Neamtan is a social architect. Her legacy is embedded in the many organizations she has founded, directed, or inspired. She never wavers from her belief that people can and do make a difference in the lives of their communities. Today, we are told that we must work within the limits over which we have little or no control, that we can only use the tools at our disposal. If Nancy Neamtan believed this 40 years ago, Quebec would be a very different place today. For Nancy Neamtan, the only limit is the imagination. Mr. President and Vice Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate and the Board of Governors, it is my privilege and honor to present you Ms. Nancy Neamtan so that you may confer upon her the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
I would like to congratulate Dr. Neamtan, and I would like to ask her to make her remarks. Thank you.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Chairman of the Board of Governors, Mr. President and Vice Chancellor, honored platform guests, graduating class, membres de ma famille et de mes amis, de mes collègues qui sont ici avec nous aujourd'hui. It is with great pride and gratitude that I stand before you to accept this honorary doctorate from Concordia University. I would like to thank President Alan Shepard and his team of dynamic, forward-thinking colleagues who have made this possible. It is indeed a magnificent symbol of the collaboration and complicity that we have developed over the years in a common search for social justice and economic democracy. This honor is one for which I cannot take credit on my own. For the achievements that are being recognized today are the results of the collective intelligence, the engagement, and the hard work of thousands of men and women across Quebec and elsewhere who have taken up the challenge to put the economy at the service of people. The success of the social economy movement, in which I have been involved for so many years, is based not primarily on the work of its leaders like myself, but on the roots it has built in rural and in urban communities, on the collective intelligence that has emerged through its democratic and participatory structures, and on the capacity for innovation that has been demonstrated time and time again by citizens taking into hand economic tools to create social benefit. The recognition in a university setting of this citizen-based movement is highly symbolic and represents the evolution of the relationship between universities and communities in a direction that is very far from the reality when I was a student, like many in the hall here today. The last time I spoke in Montreal in a similar context was in 1968, when I was valedictorian for my high school graduating class in NDG. For those who know me, they will not be surprised to hear that I did not miss the opportunity to denounce the system of education that through my 16-year-old eyes sought to model us into conforming and non-thinking individuals. My relationship with institutional learning was mainly a downhill slope after that. I finished my BA as soon as possible because I was, after all, interested in the real world, which, with many others of my generation, I hope to change radically. And looking back, I was not totally wrong to steer clear from institutions of higher learning. They were at that time in many ways in another world. It was not in the classroom, but in the streets, that many of my generation spent time denouncing what we did not like, rather than working in a more systematic process to solve the wicked problems the world was facing. My mistrust of university experts stuck with me for a long time, and in many ways for good reasons. For too often, the desire to do things differently was met with mistrust or simply ignored by the experts in the field. This was particularly true in the field of the economy and economic development. If it was acceptable to meddle in social issues and to experiment with new approaches to poverty alleviation or other issues of social justice, the economy was to be left to the experts, and management to the business schools who had their recipes to maximize corporate profits. And so when social activists like myself decided in the early 80s to undertake a process of community economic development in an old industrial area in Montreal, even our first reflex was to call on the experts. With Reaganism and Thatcherism in its hour of glory, we were nevertheless convinced that we could never solve the problems of poverty and social exclusion if we did not change the way economic development was happening in our community. The experts told us two things. One was that, in fact, we should not take on the issue of the economy, that it was the role of private companies and not citizens or communities to create wealth, and that we just had to wait passively for the wealth to trickle down to our community. The second thing we were told was that if we really wanted to get rid of poverty at a local level, the best way and the best strategy was to encourage the transformation of local factories into condos, and that the resulting gentrification would push up rents, drive the poor out of the neighborhood, and our problems would be solved. Can we really be blamed for not listening to the experts once again? And so off we went, experimenting new approaches to enterprise development, to finance, and to many other issues in order to forward our goal to put the economy at the service of human development. And then something changed in our relationships with the experts. People like Margie Mendel walked into my life. They did what few university professors were doing at the time. They reached out to us to see how they could help move our practices forward by putting their expertise at the service of social change. From Margie and her colleagues, we learned that the economic theory we were challenging was called the trickle-down effect. And by the way, the theory has recently been debunked by the OECD and the IMF because it has not worked. On the contrary, it has provoked an exponential and historical gap between the rich and the poor. So in fact, we were right 30 years ago and not the experts. We found out that we were not the only ones to have taken on the challenge of putting the economy at the service of humanity, that there were great thinkers like Karl Polanyi, but also men and women across the world who were doing the same things as us and from whom we had a lot to learn. Through our collaboration with researchers and students at Concordia and other universities, we were able to understand more and more what we were getting right and what we were doing wrong. As these university experts helped us to systematize our practices and evaluate our results in an objective and constructive process. And we even founded the name of what we were doing. It was social innovation and new approaches that had huge potential for growth. With time and the integration of these themes into university curriculum, we now benefit from the knowledge and energy of young people who have even been taught about what we were doing in the classroom and come to our organizations with skills and capacities that has taken people like myself several decades to acquire. C'est le cas d'ailleurs de ma fille Gabrielle, qui a 30 ans aujourd'hui et qui, après ses études, s'est impliquée et travaille aujourd'hui dans l'économie sociale et je suis très fière. Bonne fête, Gabrielle. Today, I stand before you, Mr. Shepherd, President Shepherd, faculty members, students, as a firm believer in the essential role that universities can and must play in the development of our city, Montreal, and in our society as a whole. Yes, I've changed, mellowed a bit, no doubt, but so have universities changed and continue to evolve in their relationship with the world around them. And Concordia has been exemplary in that sense. Today, what began with a visit from Margie Mendel to our rundown offices in Point St. Charles in 1986 has blossomed into an elaborate and rich partnership between the social economy movement and Concordia as an institution. Today, we collaborate with the School for Community and Public Affairs and the John Molson School of Business in a variety of initiatives to support and consolidate social economy enterprises in Montreal and soon across Quebec. We have worked and continue to work with the Concordia Student Union around exciting new collective initiatives. We are partners in the Changer Initiative, allowing students to receive scholarships to become ambassadors within the university community to promote social and collective entrepreneurship. We are working with the City of Montreal, Concordia, and many others, including international agencies like the OECD and the UN Task Force on the Social and Solidarity Economy to prepare the Global Social Economy Forum, which will take place here in Montreal next September. And I am convinced that the best is yet to come. Yes, we have come a long way in building that strategic relationship between universities and communities that allows people like myself and those within institutions of higher learning to work together to hasten the emergence of a new and more democratic, inclusive, and sustainable development model for our planet. My deepest wish is that this honorary doctorate represents not simply the recognition of my past achievements and those of our movement, but rather a sign of better things to come. I will conclude en remerciant les membres de ma famille, mes amis, mes collègues, avec qui je partage cet honneur, car sans eux, je ne serais pas ici aujourd'hui. And once again, a huge thank President Shepherd, my friends and colleagues here in Concordia, for your efforts and collaboration, past and future, in the search for social justice and economic democracy. And to conclude, félicitations à tous les diplômés de Concordia. Vous avez travaillé fort et cette reconnaissance est bien méritée que je partage avec vous aujourd'hui. Merci.
Dr. Neamtan, thank you for your remarks. You are indeed a model of social justice, and we thank you for your leadership, your passion, and your drive to make a difference in our society. Thank you. Congratulations.